Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Franks, for your testimony before our subcommittee today. I know how passionate you are about this. We share that passion, and you're helping to write the roadmap for addressing the EMP threat speaks to your commitment. I wanted to also welcome Dr. Beck, who was a former staffer, a staff director for this subcommittee, and has also developed an expertise on this matter. So I want to welcome you back, Dr. Beck. I believe it is important that we find the building blocks for the partnership of which Congressman Franks has articulated this morning. We must bring improvements to the security and reliability of one of our most important critical infrastructures, our electric grid. And I understand that our very reliance on the infrastructure that makes it important to anticipate the worst. And there are many scenarios that we should be concerned about. We're still learning about the significant threat that could come in the form of a natural or man-made electromagnetic pulse, and have more to learn about the effects of the EMP and geomagnetic disturbances to the grid as well. Over the past few years, I have followed with interest, Mr. Chairman, the secure grid exercises that the National Defense University has held at Fort McNair. These series of tabletop exercises in the U.S. electric grid security have focused on the effects of a major geomagnetic storm on the nation's electrical infrastructure. With the 12-year peak in solar activity approaching in 2012-2013, there's considerable upturn in interest from government agencies, including the White House and Congress, in understanding the potential impacts if a geomagnetic disturbance event should occur. Although this is a low probability event, the consequences of an extended and widespread power loss across portions of the country would constitute a serious national emergency. To me, one of the largest barriers to government agency disaster response is cross-agency coordination. The role of authority, crucial elements made more difficult when discussing privately owned national electric grid. Ultimately, the secure grid exercises and other policy discussions work to identify preparedness gaps in plans to manage the challenges associated with extended power outages and add urgency to existing efforts to identify technology solutions to protect the U.S. grid. This hearing serves to highlight areas where the U.S. and its allies are analyzing the risks that a severe geomagnetic disturbance would present, and help us look for international approaches to effectively react to those risks. While severe solar storms that create geomagnetic disturbances cannot be prevented, there are tools and opportunities to mitigate and protect the grid from such risks of such an event. My colleagues on the Homeland Security Committee and I have spent nearly 3 years identifying and reviewing security protections that are in place to mitigate the effects of any intentional or unintentional attack on the electric system. Our goal is to determine whether appropriate protections are in place that would mitigate catastrophic incidents on the grid. Our review has required extensive discussions and review with the private sector, which owns, operates, and secures the grid. The private sector develops its own security standards and also oversees compliance with these standards. In short, the private sector has the responsibility, as has been stated by Congressman Frank, for securing the grid from electromagnetic events and cyber attacks. And I'm very pleased to see the statement for the record submitted by the North American Reliability Corporation. These are the folks who are the closest to the electric grid, and they manage an almost impossibly complex flow of energy, not just our 330+ million people, but also the flow of energy across our borders every day. Finally, the U.S. Congress has acted. In June of 2010, the GRID Act passed the House of Representatives unanimously. Unfortunately, it stalled in the Senate and did not become law. The bill would have granted the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission expanded authorities to oversee electromagnetic and cyber protections. This Congress, Congressman Franks, has introduced a version of the bill now called the SHIELD Act, which is similar to the GRID Act, but focuses only on the electromagnetic threat component without the cybersecurity component. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, and it is our hope that during the next Congress, we will get this bill through both houses and to the President's desk. So I just wanted to put that on the record, and thank you again, Congressman Franks, for your vigilance. I think this is a very crucial concern, and as we look at the modernity of our civil society, we must be concerned about unintended consequences from what may be a solar, geomagnetic, or intentional threat to our electric grid. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.